So here is my Steam machine, and I think I've made a huge mistake. I let my girlfriend have a go, so I've barely been able to have a chance to go on the bloody thing. All jokes aside, I am actually very, very happy with this device. But before I dive into the review, I just want to clarify by saying that this isn't a review that will focus on the technical aspects as such, about the power. I'm not going to be doing frame rate comparisons or anything like that. I was coming at this purely from an experience point of view. Does it do what I want it to do? Was I able to play a lot of games that are already on my Steam library? Was I able to install games that I'd got from other sources? Was I able to watch YouTube and my media library on it? Was I able to play my emulators? And in a nutshell, the answer to all those questions is a resounding absolutely. But let's dive into some more of the specifics. So firstly, in terms of setup. Setup was very, very easy. It was very similar to the Steam Deck setup, so much so in fact that the internal name for the device, I don't know if it will be changed, it is currently Deck. So when I've logged into this remotely, it's still referred to as a Steam Deck, which definitely goes to show that they've just ported a lot of the Steam Deck features from SteamOS over into the Steam machine. Although I do hope that it does get a little bit more of its own identity in future updates. So the actual setup process was very, very easy. You plug it in, it comes with all the power cables and HDMI in the box. You plug your controller in with the puck if you've got one. If not, then you can just use a normal Bluetooth controller, or you can just plug in a USB controller and do it that way. It had to do some updates, but they took a couple of minutes, wasn't long at all. And then I had to update the controller firmware on both my controllers as well. But all in all, from turning it on to getting fully into SteamOS, or the big picture mode, the gaming mode, about 5 minutes, wasn't long at all. Now, for the UI itself, this is something that I have a little bit of mixed feelings on. It's something that is definitely designed by developers rather than artists, and it really goes to show. Now, on the Steam Deck, that wasn't so bad, because the Steam Deck was definitely more aimed at hardcore gamers, whereas I think the Steam machine, I'm angling it as a perfect console PC hybrid experience. I strongly feel that the UI definitely needs some drastic improvements in order to appeal to a more casual audience. Now, I don't mean strictly the whole console as a casual audience, but if you've got a wife, a girlfriend, a boyfriend, children especially, then they might find this overwhelming compared to something like a Switch or a PlayStation. Not on Xbox, because their UI is also terrible, so at least it's not that bad. I will cover this more in depth later, but there are things like CSS Loader, which is a Decky plugin, which does allow you to customize some features, but all in all, it's just adding a little extra coat of paint, and it doesn't give you a great deal of control over that user experience. Firstly, onto playing my actual Steam library. So I've put a lot of hours into BioShock Infinite mainly. I tested out a few demos as a request from some users in my Discord, which if you want to join and discuss all things handheld, Steam Deck, whatever, then please check it out in the link below. I tested out the Immortal Shell 2 demo, which ran flawlessly. I also tested out some weird anime game thing that came as a request, which ran perfectly, but my god, was it boring. Can't remember the name of it, but I'll pop it up here. So for BioShock Infinite, whilst it did run flawlessly, I did have to go in and manually adjust the UI scale because it was tiny and barely legible. So I was able to do that myself. That was very much a game-specific issue. But in terms of an experience, it ran perfectly. The controller, I was able to use the native controller profile. The controller profiles, if you've used the Steam Deck, then it's something you'll be familiar with. And for a lot of the games, particularly the game my girlfriend was playing, she was putting a lot into Retro Rewind, which is it's like a video store simulator, which takes me back to those early Blockbuster days. Oh, how I miss them so. And it did run flawlessly, and she was able, I had to show her, here's how you look at a controller profile, and she was able to find a suitable one. I did explain to her that you can just create your own profiles, but as someone who, she is not quite a casual gamer, but not quite a hardcore gamer. She plays a lot of your popular friend slot type of things, but she's not going to dive into SteamOS. So it's definitely a kind of device where, as the IT guy in the household or the IT gal in the household, you'll probably be getting a lot of questions from friends and family if they want to play games that aren't natively supportive. Now, in terms of game support, the only game that gave me actual issue is I tried out Fallen Aces, which I had on my wishlist for a while, and it's in early access, so I imagine that most of these issues will be patched in future. However, I tried several different versions of Proton, and you can see here in the footage that I'll add that the textures were missing. The game ran, in terms of frame rate, ran smoothly, but those textures were barely loading, so it was pretty much unplayable. But again, that is an early access game running on Proton. I tried Proton Experimental, I tried a few of the preview models, I also tried just some random ones. I'd seen some things online about getting it running on the Steam Deck, and I tried those and it didn't quite apply. But that is only that game. Everything else I tried ran perfectly. I tried Hitman. So the heaviest game I tried out was Baldur's Gate 3, and I'm aware that that is a little bit of a beast anyway. I did notice some frame hitchiness, but not enough to ruin the experience at all. Now, in terms of resolution, I did try stuff at 4K, and you could definitely tell there was some slight lagginess compared to trying it at 1440p. However, I just set everything to 1440p, and I couldn't tell you the visual clarity difference. I didn't have any ray tracing turned on because I would much rather prioritize a strong, solid frame rate over resolution or graphical fidelity. And for the most part, it worked absolutely flawlessly. I also tried out Tony Hawk's Rethawed, which is a American Wasteland mod, which is well worth it if you're into the Tony Hawk's games. It's great, check it out. So I actually installed this fully on the device itself. I didn't get the game files on a PC and transfer them over. So to install this, I just went into desktop mode. I went into Firefox. I got the portable version of Tony Hawk's American Wasteland off the Neversoft archive, and then I got the Rethawed updater, the Linux version, from their website, and it was dead easy. I just left it running. It takes quite a while because it's got a lot of files to install and patch and things like that. But booted it up, added it as a non-Steam game, and it ran flawlessly. So using this as a media player, it wasn't a painless experience, but I was able to get it working to how I like it. Firstly, I watch a lot of YouTube, obviously. And if you're enjoying this video, I would also appreciate a like and a subscribe, so don't forget. But I used Vacuum Tube, and that is a free app that's available, and it's basically a version of YouTube that works the same as it would on your Apple TV, your Fire Stick, whatever desktop or mobile YouTube apps you have. It's a version of that which works, and it has full controller support, which was excellent, and that ran really, really well. Now, as someone who runs a self-hosted media server, I often use Plex, and I wanted to get Plex working on it. Now, I tried the Plex Home Theatre PC app and found it to be pretty terrible. However, there is an app that has come out quite recently called Plezi, and for the most part, that did work great. I had to go in and adjust the UI scaling myself, kind of the same as I did with BioShock, and I did have to add a line of code where I basically have what's called client-side decorations, or CSDs. So when I opened up Plezi, even though I was in gaming mode, you could see like the window at the top, and that was a bit annoying, but again, it was a line of code that was fixed, so I just have a little shell script, so every time it updates, or I update the app, I can just copy my shell script over to it, and it'll just put those back. So again, I'm hoping that as the Steam Deck and SteamOS become more prominent, that developers will take more notice and make sure that they've accounted for those platforms. But once I got it set up, it was for the most part a painless experience. The main issue I had was if you were to play some media and then try and go back out of it, the B button wouldn't work. You had to press your little Steam button, use your mouse touchpad, and then manually click the back button. However, with a couple of lines of code, I was able to fix it for my own build, and then I raised it as an issue on GitHub, and then it was patched within a day or two. The most recent version seems to have reintroduced some weird little quirks with controller navigation. So again, hopefully that is something that'll be patched soon. If you've ever worked in development, then you'll know that you can fix one thing, and like a Hydra, more bugs will spring up that you've inadvertently caused. But I have faith, the app is great, well worth checking out. Even if you're not on SteamOS, it's a great little app if you're a Plex user anyway. So also as well, one of the things I did have a little bit of an issue with is the HDMI CEC, which I think a lot of people have had kind of mixed experiences with. For those of you who aren't aware, CEC is basically, it's a way where the device can control your telly and vice versa, so it communicates with it. So if you plug your Steam Machine into your TV, and then you turn the Steam Machine on, it should, if it's enabled, turn the telly on. And when you turn the telly off, it should turn the device off, or if you turn the device on, it should turn the telly off. There should be a synchronicity there. When I first got it, it worked perfectly. It has had some software updates, and now it definitely seems temperamental. I do believe that joining the beta channel for the updates has had some more success, so I'll be checking that out in future videos as well. But on the stable channel, definitely a little bit of a mixed bag. Now, stepping aside from games for the moment, I recently went on a holiday, and one of my favourite things about this device was the fact that I got this little bag off Amazon, which I'm assuming is a repurposed lunchbox. I don't know what company it was. I'll leave a link to it in the description below. It will be an affiliate link, so if you do buy, I'll probably get a couple of quid. Great little bag, allows you to store all your power cables, both controllers and the device itself in a lovely little carry case. So I was able to package it up nice and easily and then jump over to my holiday. So I brought the Steam machine here to this lovely little shepherd's hut in Cardigan in Wales. And even though I'm technically supposed to be away from machines and away from technology, I just couldn't resist, given that it's such a small, compact form factor. Not only have I got loads of retro games on here and some modern Steam games, I've also loaded it up with a load of movies. So even though I'm technically on holiday, I can still play my games and have a movie night. And I have brought 2 controllers, so Maple can play as well. And she's off. So despite playing on the world's worst television at a great 768p, I think I was getting out of it, it was absolutely awful. But it was playable and we were able to watch some movies, watch some TV. We had to strain our eyes a little bit, but the device itself ran perfectly. And it was totally offline as well. I wasn't able to, we didn't have Wi-Fi at the hut, so it was purely an offline device. I was able to download some movies, some TV shows, and as an experience, pretty much plug and play, nice and easy. So if you're someone who travels a lot, if you go on business trips or you're going on holiday in a hotel, for example, then this is something that you could always carry with you if you're away from an extended period of time. Now, on to my favourite topic, and probably the most hours I've spent has been emulation, and this was really, really easy. Firstly, I tried out EmuDeck. Now, they have recently updated EmuDeck to be more compatible with the Steam machine. I set it up originally on the version that was just the standard SteamOS one, which is aimed at the Steam Deck, and for the most part, it ran pretty perfectly. Like, the only main issue I had is logging on to retro achievements in the EmuDeck wizard. Didn't seem to do anything on the actual emulator side, so I did have to go through RetroArch and PCSX2 and DuckStation and all the others and manually sign in to retro achievements that way. Not a huge issue, but something, I don't know if it's been patched in this latest version, but something I'll be trying and covering in a future video. I did also try out RetroDeck, which is a lot more user-friendly in terms of it being a plug-and-play situation. It creates a little ROMs folder on your root storage, and you can just drop your ROMs into there, the same way that EmuDeck does, but it's more dedicated and it's got lovely little console icons in the folders. However, I felt that I believe the versions of the emulators they're using a little bit outdated, and also the default profiles weren't something I was really after, whereas EmuDeck is a nice kind of middle ground for, it does have a nice starting point, but I can also go in and adjust the configuration myself if I wish to do so. I also tried out the Bezel project. If you're not familiar with the Bezel project, it is basically an online script you can get which connects to your RetroArch, you run it, and it gives each game a custom overlay related to that game. It's a bit of a tank in terms of size, it can take up several gigabytes, but it is well worth it. I did have to tweak it slightly just to get it to point to the right folders, but it was just a simple bash script, took me 2 minutes, and then it ran perfectly. So the main front end for EmuDeck and RetroDeck to an extent is Emulation Station, which is a great robust front end. However, as I have recently joined the development team for NeoStation, which is a multi-platform based front end, I thought I'd give that a try as well. Now, our main audience, and the numbers don't lie, and they spell disaster for us, it is primarily used by Android users because of the likes of the AY4, the AY and Odin. So there is still some quirks to be ironed out for the Linux side of thing. However, the more experience I have with this machine, the more I'll be able to update those desktop-based versions. But NeoStation, for the most part, was a fun little experience, just need to iron out some little quirks. But in terms of the actual emulation experience, I was able to play all my classics, which ran absolutely flawlessly thanks to the RetroArch cores, to DuckStation, and I even tried out some PS3 emulation, which for a lot of platforms does struggle. However, I was able to get Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker HD running flawlessly, although it does come out on PlayStation 5 and PC soon, so a little bit redundant. I also tried out Ratchet & Clank HD, and that seemed to work okay. Did have some weird controller finickiness, but there was a controller update, and that did seem to fix it. So not 100% sure on whether or not that was on the controller side, or the emulator side, or even most likely something I had done. But that ran okay. I did try a couple of other games. I tried Splinter Cell HD, and that just failed to boot. I tried Metal Gear Solid 4, and that just failed to boot. So given the early stages of PS3 emulation development, it wasn't surprising, but it's good to know that the games that I did try out, or some of the games I tried out, did work to a state which is perfectly playable. So that is my current experience with the Steam machine. So I do want to talk about some of the negatives. Now, my main negative to start with is obviously the price. It is very expensive. This is the 2TB model with the controller. I think I paid about £1,300. Can't remember off the top of my head. It's about £1,300, which is a chunk of change. I know some people who've built their own Steam machines with blackjack and hookers, and they've been able to use similar components in a similar form factor. However, for an all-in-one, I don't think you'll get something that runs this quiet as well. And even running games like I was before, things like Baldur's Gate 3, which I was running at max settings on 1440p, this was whisper quiet, did not make a noise. So it is incredibly expensive for what it is, and we've seen with the Rampocalypse and the cost of storage prices going up thanks to AI, we've seen that it's not only Valve that are getting hit, Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, all these massive companies are taking huge hits to their profit margins because of the rising cost of components. And I believe that Valve doesn't have any strict deals with companies. They literally buy the components as and when they can get them. I think this red faceplate is ugly and it feels horrible. It's like a weird suede fabric. So I've decided just to go with the wood, which surprised me because at first I thought I'd just stick to a nice sleek all black. But we have kind of a wooden TV stand, and this sits nicely on top of that. And it does kind of sit very, very, very nicely. Although I'm very excited to see what a lot of the Etsy creators and Temu and what the other cheap Chinese and Amazon creators can come up with when this gets into more people's hands. I do believe they have just released a lot of the dimensional stuff, and I'm excited to see what options are available in the next 6 to 12 months. My other main negative is around the kind of SteamOS and the features it has or lack thereof. Now, most of my issues were kind of rectified with Decky, which allows you to install some third-party plugins on top of it. However, if you've ever used Decky before, then you'll be aware that once one thing breaks in Decky, it can break everything. And I had that experience. I was using an app called Tabmaster, and one of my main issues with SteamOS is that some of the functionality which should be part of the experience is being covered by a third-party plugin, which doesn't sit right in my eyes. But Tabmaster is basically a way to manage your little tabs at the top. So I created a media tab, I hid the non-Steam tab because I didn't really like it, and then I also created a emulation tab where I could keep things like ESDE and RetroDeck when I tried that. But that was very kind of manual, and the fact that I wasn't able to do it natively in SteamOS in the gaming mode does feel like a huge missed opportunity. However, there are some great plugins. I did try the ROM Sync, which, if you're not sure, ROM is a self-hosted ROM manager, which you can install on a server on your PC, and it basically gives you a nice little ROM library where you can download games to your device. There is a Decky plugin called Decky ROM Sync. However, what this does is it imports your games as games on your Steam home screen, which isn't quite what I wanted because I have a lot of games and it kind of led to a lot of bloat. I like having all my emulation inside a front end, for example ESDE or NeoStation. So I would like to see more development that way. I know ROM have recently announced their 5.0 version and there's been some updates to their app. So hopefully as the Steam machine becomes more popular and SteamOS in general, we will see developments in that side. So should you buy it? If you are a PC gamer and you have a gaming PC, I'd say no. If you have a gaming PC, this is pretty redundant. Most of your gaming PCs will be far more powerful than this. However, where this beats those gaming PCs is 1, form factor and portability, 2, how quiet it runs, and 3, I think a general just spousal family approval. Like I said at the start of the video, I let my girlfriend have a go, and she has spent more time on this. She has a mid-range gaming PC that she plays some games with her friends. She has since switched to primarily just playing them on this, and just running Discord in the background or off a phone and just doing it that way. So in terms of having that kind of family unit, it has been ideal. And also as an all-round entertainment and media centre as well, being able to access things like YouTube and Plex. You can also get things like Netflix, but I cut the cord a while ago, so I don't tend to use stuff like that. It's all accessible on a single device, and because a lot of them are browser-based or web app plugins, there's no risk of kind of them being abandoned further down the line. If you're someone who is brand new to PC gaming and you've put some money aside and you think, I want something where I can play my Steam library, I want to start building a Steam library, then personally I think this is the way to go, especially at the moment, because even if you take into consideration the fact that you could build your own PC, in terms of cost, you're not that far off what this costs. And like I said earlier, for the most part, this has run most of everything I've tried to throw at it. I don't play the most graphically intense games, and just as an aside, there are some games that you cannot play, I believe some Call of Duties, a lot of online games because of Valve's anti-cheat. However, I do believe, and I could be incorrect, so please let me know in the comments if I'm wrong, they are working on ways around that to still let you play those online games, but kind of bypassing that anti-cheat mechanism. Unless you're cheating, in which case, get in the bin. It's an online game. Get a job. And this was just my kind of chilled look at the Steam machine. I didn't want to do a full in-depth review where I look at things like frame rate comparisons and things like that, and power draw and benchmarks, because at the end of the day, you can look at all the numbers you want, but it will never account for what does it feel like, what is the experience. The majority of people won't notice a slight frame rate dip. I noticed a couple of very minor ones, but it was the trade-off of, do I care enough? And also, I know a lot of people upset about that, oh, they said 4K 60, and I didn't do too much testing with that, but it definitely seemed like this is not a 4K machine, it's a 1440p machine, and unless you've got an absolute gargantuan telly, you're not going to notice the difference. So I think this device is well worth it. I'm looking forward to seeing some SteamOS updates. I would like to see more customization options when it comes to the UI especially. And I think that as this does have a slightly more casual audience appeal than a normal gaming PC, I do hope that we see some improvements in that sense. Or if some genius developers out there for Decky can start giving us some plugins that really overhaul the experience. So I'll have a lot of videos coming out about the Steam machine and what it can do. I'll be looking at obviously getting the emulation side set up. I'll also be looking at turning this into a media server similar to like I've done with my NAS, and basically turning this into a little one-size-fits-all everything machine, because it's a little powerhouse. It's expensive, but I love it, and I'm glad I bought one. I know a lot of you guys are either in the wait list or you're on the fence. I'd say, because of how long the wait's going to be, get in that wait list. If you get lucky enough and your chance to buy one comes along, then personally, I'd say it's well worth it. Obviously, don't bankrupt yourself. If you've got the money, get one. But this is by no means a necessity you must have, but if you're lucky enough to get one, then you will really see the benefit. So that's it from me, and if you like this video, I would appreciate a like and a subscribe. I cover a lot of handhelds and emulation and setup guides and things like that. If you've got any questions about the Steam machine itself or about SteamOS, please let me know in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer them. I'll try and be as active as I can, although YouTube's comment system is a bit terrible, so if I miss it, I apologise, but you can also join my Discord and reach me directly that way. Or you can just drop me an email. My email is in the description and also on my channel. So that's it from me. Thanks for watching, and see you next time. Maple, do you want the people to like and subscribe? Yeah, you do.